Hello, everyone. Before we start our panel discussion, please allow me to present to you a video showing you a glimpse of the beauty of Argentina and Peru.
Hola, somos Argentina, y si hay algo que nos define, es la diversidad. En nuestros casi 3 millones de kilómetros cuadrados, es posible encontrar todos los climas e increíbles paisajes, algunos declarados por UNESCO como Patrimonio de la Humanidad. A la diversidad de la naturaleza, sumamos la de nuestra gente. Entre 1880 y 1950, recibimos 5 millones de inmigrantes de casi toda Europa y buena parte de Asia. Todos ellos nos enseñaron el valor del esfuerzo y la cultura del trabajo, pero también sus modos de disfrutar la vida y celebrarla. Así que no importa de dónde seas, seguro tenés a alguien cercano en la Argentina. Somos un país sin conflictos bélicos, raciales, religiosos o fronterizos. Y aprendimos a convivir en paz como una sola nación. En Argentina hay también un poquito de Colombia, Chile, Perú, Bolivia y Paraguay. Si discutimos con Uruguay y con Brasil, es solo por fútbol. En nuestro suelo producimos alimentos para 400 millones de personas. Pero también exportamos software, reactores nucleares, helicópteros, biotecnología y videojuegos. Como todos los jóvenes cometimos algunos errores, pero hemos aprendido mucho. Tenemos 2 premios Nobel de la Paz y un peregrino de la Concordia. Tenemos algunos campeones. Pero hay una sola pasión que nos vuelve locos. Tenemos 4 unicornios tecnológicos, 3 premios Nobel en ciencia, 2 premios Oscar y un extraterrestre. Tanta diversidad nos hace creativos, inquietos y emprendedores, y nos gusta compartir esos logros con el mundo. Somos amistosos, sociables y extrovertidos. Y en nuestro asado siempre hay lugar para un invitado más. Somos Argentina. Somos la diversidad. Fuimos, somos y seguiremos siendo una nación abierta al mundo.
Peru is one of the Latin American countries with the best economic growth prospects, as well as investment opportunities. Peru is recognized as a country with stable macroeconomic policies, focused on promoting private investment in addition to effective debt management. This has enabled Peru to achieve the highest GDP per capita growth rate in Latin America over the past decade. Moreover, Peruvian juridical stability ensures a legal framework to encourage the free flow of capital, making Peru one of the major foreign investment destinations in Latin America. Peru is one of the world's 10 economies which have seen the highest growth in the past 15 years in terms of wealth, surpassed only by China, New Zealand, and Colombia. Peru has associated with the world's main economies, promoting trade and investment. Peru has signed free trade agreements with Canada, the United States, Mexico, Costa Rica, the European Union, China, South Korea, Japan, Thailand, and Singapore, among other countries. This has given Peru privileged access to the biggest markets around the world, which represents 73% of global GDP and 92% of global trade. Peru has an investment grade rating, and it is expected that its economy will maintain the leadership of economic growth in Latin America in the coming years. Peru is a member of the World Trade Organization, the Pacific Alliance, and the Forum of Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC. In addition, Peru is engaged with the OECD through the launching of a country program in 2014. Peru is also noted for its good business climate and is now focused on developing more infrastructure via public-private partnerships, or PPP. In the past decade, the private investment promotion agency Proinversión has awarded 71 public-private partnership projects with an investment commitment of over $30 billion. These results encourage Peru to develop more infrastructure through the PPP investment mechanism in the following years. Peru offers attractive investment opportunities under a solid framework of stable macroeconomic policies. We invite you to be part of this great country.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first panel discussion of the Indonesia, Latin America, and the Caribbean Business Forum 2021. My name is Amelia Yahya. I'm a news anchor for CNN Indonesia, and I'm so incredibly honored to be a part of this incredible forum as your moderator, especially with a crowd of your caliber. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed very excited to be given the opportunity to moderate this session on enhancing partnership and post-pandemic economic recovery between Indonesia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Looking back, as we all have seen and experienced since almost 2 years ago, in the initial weeks and months of the COVID-19 pandemic, economic forecasters talked about a V-shaped recovery, a quick bounce back roughly to where we were before lockdowns and quarantines became the order of the day, which shut down much of the world, but things would return to normal as soon as we opened back up. Although several countries have experienced post-pandemic economic recovery in the first half of this year in 2021, it turns out that recovering economically from a pandemic is more complicated than we all thought. There's so many causes. The highly contagious Delta variant of the virus has put a damper on the speed of economic recovery. As also the demand has surged back to pre-pandemic levels, it has contributed to the rising inflation around the world. And also relatedly, supply chain bottlenecks are also slowing the delivery of goods to producers as well as to consumers. Also amongst the challenges, global economic recovery is expected to occur unevenly due to the disparities of the vaccination process. And also along with the new normal era, the possibility of the emergence of a third or fourth wave of COVID-19, brace ourselves, also leaves a lot of uncertainty for the economy going forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where the session comes in. Together, we'll discuss the development of post-pandemic policies to encourage business actors from both regions to improve trade relations. And then, of course, let us learn from one another. Together, let us delve into the diversification of new opportunities in Indonesia, Latin America, and the Caribbean economic and business cooperation. So to start our panel discussion, it is with distinct pleasure that I shall invite an incredible figure. Her Excellency has more than 35 years of experience in the fields of business development, commerce, international negotiations, foreign investments, and regional development. Throughout her career, she has been concerned with fighting corruption, promoting security, creating jobs, enhancing competitiveness, and promoting public policies that ensure women's political, social, and economic empowerment. Let us all welcome Her Excellency Marta Lucia Ramirez, the Vice President of the Republic of Colombia and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Colombia, as well as the President pro tempore of the Pacific Alliance, to deliver her remarks. Your Excellency, the time is yours.
it is an honor for me to send my greetings to the Indonesian business community and also to the business community from some other countries in Asia. And of course, it's an honor to send my greetings to members of Congress, members of government, and of course to the ambassador of Colombia in Indonesia, Juan Camilo Valencia. I would like to say that on behalf of President Iván Duque and on behalf of the Pacific Alliance, because Colombia has the pro-tempore presidency in the Pacific Alliance, it is a forum which has the most important influence nowadays, and we would like to have a very active participation in this Indonesia Latin American Business Forum. This year, it's a forum, it celebrates the third edition, and in the search to bring closer and strengthen the economic ties between our region and Indonesia through the promotion of trade, investments, and the creation of spaces and business opportunities for entrepreneurs. Not only entrepreneurs from Indonesia or Asia, but also entrepreneurs from Colombia, Latin America, and mostly from the members of the Pacific Alliance, which means Peru, Mexico, of course, Chile, and Colombia. These initiatives, such as the INA-LAC Forum, are essential for our private sectors, for our private community, to approach, to have a better knowledge each other, to get know how to carry our business that generates positive impacts on our economies, our business fabric, and of course in the job creation. For us, it is essential nowadays that every single decision that our government takes is focused in the recovery of the economy, in the repotentiation of the Colombian private sector, and in the creation of jobs, of course. Proof of this is the fact that last year, the forum managed to register an increase in transactions of 70 million US dollars, thanks to the development of a virtual platform that allowed to increase the scope of companies in both regions. This year, the forum addresses a fundamental and most topical theme for all our countries: the partnership between Indonesia and Latin America and the Caribbean. Recover together, recover stronger. That's what I mean when I said we have to repotentiate the opportunities for our economies. Undoubtedly, for all of us, it is a priority to achieve economic recovery and reach and exceed the levels of growth that we had before the pandemic. So forums such as INA-LAC are extremely important in the objective to reactivate our economies by promoting businesses. The Pacific Alliance was born as a response to the interests of our countries located in the Pacific Basin to advance in the integration of their markets in order to consolidate a deep integration project that would ensure the free mobility of goods, services, capital, and people seeking to have a platform to promote a joint insertion in other regions of the world, with a special emphasis on the Asia-Pacific. In this context, Indonesia, being one of the most important economies of Asia-Pacific and an observer state of the Pacific Alliance since July 15, it is in our greatest interest to support the development of initiatives such as the INA-LAC Forum and other activities conducive to the deepening knowledge of our economies, and also in the focus to strengthen our ties in the search for more and better opportunities for our entrepreneurs from both sides. We encourage the utilization of Indonesia's powerful market, which has a population of approximately 270 million people, an expanding middle class, a robust business sector, an economy that in the decade before the pandemic reached an average annual GDP growth of more than 5%, and which shows signs of a rapid recovery with GDP growth of 8% compared to the same period before the pandemic. Indonesia is a country that is increasingly opening up to the world and is a supremely attractive business destination for the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, and in particular for those of the Pacific Alliance. We admire Indonesia as a success story from which our economies have valuable lessons to learn. We have this commitment to have these strong ties with Indonesia, while we know that this destination represents an important source for our commercial exchanges, and this is a fact that we must continue to encourage and seek to open new joint spaces to promote and strengthen this dynamic from abroad, and also this dynamic focus in the medium and long term, because we have to maintain this perspective. Not it's only the current situation, it's the medium and long term which shows us how important are the opportunities within us. It is through the efforts to achieve recovery in the post-pandemic where we must make use of those opportunities offered by technology, using them to bring our entrepreneurs, both large companies and also small and medium-sized enterprises, and thus take advantage of the multiple opportunities offered by our markets on both sides of the Pacific. Digital has become essential, necessary for this new post-pandemic period in which we are entering, and understanding this from the Pacific Alliance, we are committed to continue promoting a digital agenda through meetings such as the one that calls us today, but also through the digital economy. We have to improve the productivity in all the economies. We have to improve transparency in all the procedures within government, in the relation between government and citizens, because we also need to strengthen the confidence, the trust between citizens and government and states. We are expanding all our efforts to cover the issues of science, technology, innovation, and those are key to developing the necessary knowledge that will allow us to have concrete solutions to the challenges of the pandemic and facilitate our approaches. The Pacific Alliance has assumed the commitment to promote a regional digital market whose roadmap for its implementation was signed last April 30th within the framework of the celebration of our first 10 years. This allows us to move towards the development of a more robust digital infrastructure, the creation of a more conducive environment to promote more and more trade between us. And of course, this digital focus means of goods, products, services, and above all, to boost the development of the economy and digital skills with a view to generate new sources of growth and productivity, as I mentioned before. Together with the private sector, we have to strengthen telecommunications infrastructure in Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. And this has allowed us to connect millions of homes and business to fiber optic networks and drive the digital transformation of the regional economy, which also allows us to be connected to Asia from our companies at all levels. In line with these important efforts regarding the digital agenda of the Pacific Alliance, I believe of the utmost importance to point us how the rise of a digital economy will also facilitate the development of the creative digital in different opportunities in the economies in each of our countries, members of the Alliance. The development of a creative economy is a high priority issue for both Colombia and Indonesia, and a vehicle for the economic recovery of all our countries. All of this has been key to increasing trade flows within the bloc, which has become a growth level for our economies at a complex time for the world. Colombia, in its capacity as a pro tempore presidency of the Pacific Alliance, has established among its priorities the consolidation of cooperation tools that provide valuable fruits in the deepening of relations with Asia-Pacific partners, which promotes efficiency and take advantage, of course, of the opportunities offered by the joint relationship for both our partners and the members of the alliance. We are convinced that this activity will allow us to enrich and expand ties, incorporating new relationships with the purpose of favoring the interests of our countries. This promising meeting, which we are witnessing today, with pleasure consolidates the closeness between the Alliance and Indonesia and opens new paths on the path that we have started together since 2015. Now, as you know, Singapore became a new member of the Pacific Alliance. In December, we will give the presidency pro tempore to Mexico. And the commitment that Colombia has is to enlarge this Pacific Alliance with some other states which are very eager to become members also. First of all, Ecuador. Ecuador is working very hard in order to participate in our alliance. We also have all this process of negotiations with Australia. Korea, South Korea is a member that we would like to have as a part of this alliance, and of course, Indonesia. So we would like to work together with the Indonesian private sector, with the public sector, with officials from government, in order to maintain this commitment to strengthen our relations and to bring more opportunities for the citizens of all our countries. Thank you very much for this opportunity to participate with you, and thank you again to the Colombian Ambassador, Ambassador Valencia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice President Marta Lucia Ramirez. And next, ladies and gentlemen, please also allow me to welcome Her Excellency Dr. Carla Natalie Barnett, the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, to deliver her remarks. Dr. Barnett is a national of Belize and is also the first woman and the first Belizean to be selected for this incredible post. She's also served as the Financial Secretary of Belize and Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Belize. Dr. Barnett, the time is yours.
Honorable Ministers, representatives of regional and international organizations, Madam Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the headquarters of the Caribbean Community. Let me begin by thanking the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia for its foresight in initiating the Indonesia, Latin America and Caribbean Business Forum. Indonesia and the Caribbean Community have had formal relations since 2018, an acknowledgement that in an increasingly complex and unpredictable international environment, South-South cooperation can provide opportunities to advance mutual interests. Although economic relations between Indonesia and Latin America and the Caribbean have come a long way, the current relationship does not reflect the true potential. Realizing this, Indonesia organized the first Indonesian, Latin America, and the Caribbean Business Forum in 2019 to boost trade and investment between Indonesia and Latin America and the Caribbean. More than 200 participants attended the 2019 Business Forum. It is estimated that the value of business deals agreed during the event reached US $33 million and resulted in US $5 billion worth of investment opportunities, particularly in the mining sector. In 2020, a total of 533 participants, 490 virtual and 63 physical, took part in the forum, with an estimate of US $85 million in business deals. This year's business forum, in addition to generating trade agreements and investment plans, should also produce several cooperation agreements that will support the development of trade infrastructure of the two regions. Chair, according to the International Monetary Fund, Indonesia is currently the 16th largest economy and is positioning itself to move into the top 10 economies in 2021. As the world's largest archipelagic country, with the fourth largest population and the third largest democracy, Indonesia has made enormous gains in poverty reduction, cutting the poverty rate by more than half since 1999 to 9.8% in 2020. The Latin American and Caribbean region covers an extensive area extending from the Bahamas and Mexico to Argentina and Chile. The region possesses great economic potential with a population of around 652 million people and GDP of US 4.84 trillion in 2020. Despite those potentials, the total trade values between Indonesia and the region have only reached US 6.7 billion, or less than 0.4% of the total trade values of Latin America and the Caribbean. In 2020, Indonesia's exports to this region declined by more than 12%, while imports fell by almost 14%, reflecting the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, we see an increase in the first half of 2021, indicating that economic relations between Indonesia and the Latin America and Caribbean region can be enhanced, even in the midst of a very challenging global economic situation. Indonesian investment remains concentrated in the Latin American and Caribbean largest markets, especially Brazil and Mexico, but very few inroads have been made in trading with English-speaking Caribbean. Instead of only trading commodities, Indonesian companies can invest directly in our region, thereby helping to expand, secure, and add value to their supply. Indonesia can also provide manufacturing expertise and in the process circumvent trade barriers and make their products more competitive by adapting them to our consumers. Latin American and Caribbean companies can go beyond exporting commodities and capitalize on agricultural advantages, and can also use FDI to take advantage of Indonesia's lower labor costs to improve their access to Indonesia's manufacturing market and increase their understanding of Indonesian consumers. Further, the application of digitalization emerged as a natural response to cope with social distancing and restrictive measures amidst the pandemic, and accelerated the adoption of e-commerce to spur economic growth. However, it also highlighted existing challenges to bridge the digital divide and ensure the growth of e-commerce reduce inequalities rather than accentuate them. Just as digitalization allowed countries and businesses to overcome distance during the pandemic does present an opportunity for Indonesia and the Latin American and Caribbean region to realize the potential of regional and international cooperation in digital matters, address common challenges strategically, and learn from best practices. Latin America and the Caribbean in particular must accelerate digital transformation to allow businesses and consumers to adapt to the new normal and leverage pandemic recovery to create stronger economies. Indonesia and the Latin America and Caribbean region face critical policy challenges going forward. Governments, the private sector, civil society, and international development partners all have a part to play in taking concerted action to advance consistent, long-term, and sustainable commercial ties. I therefore look forward to a fruitful discussion by the panel on how we can enhance this partnership as we seek to recover from the economic crisis created by the global pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barnett. And next, I'm also incredibly honored to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita, the Minister of Industry of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver his remarks. Previously, His Excellency was appointed Minister of Social Affairs by the Indonesian President Joko Widodo. Bapak Agus, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Carla Natalie Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, Your Excellency, Marta Lucia Ramirez, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Colombia, Your Excellency Martin Guzman, Minister of Economy, Republic of Argentina, Honorable William Maloney, Chief Economist of the World Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean, distinguished guests, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, buenas noches damas y caballeros. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, may peace be upon us all. Let me start by expressing my hope that everybody here today, their families, are all healthy and safe. Ladies and gentlemen, with the global pandemic still looming over us, the economic outlook 2022 will be influenced by various factors, including the successful handling of COVID-19, recovery in public consumption, implementation of structural reforms, and prospect for global economic growth. IMF's World Economic Outlook has published mid this year, estimating that next year the global economy is to recover and grow by 4.9%. This is a respectable estimate, whereas developing countries' growth may reach a strong growth of 5.2%. In line with this, our economy, Indonesia's economy, recovery in 2022 is expected to grow between 5.0 to 5.5%. The risk of uncertainty due to emergence and spread of new COVID variants, COVID-19, will remain a determining factor that must be put into account. Nonetheless, Indonesia's policy and experience in managing the second COVID wave via nationwide mandatory vaccination programs, enforcement of health protocols, has increased public confidence to move forward with socio-economic activities. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud that Indonesia was nominated to be one of the best countries in the world in managing the second wave of COVID-19. This recognition by Johns Hopkins University was a result of Indonesia's ability to slash confirmed cases by over 58% bi-weekly. This was the result of implementation of multi-tiered public activity restrictions, especially in Java and Bali Island. As of today, COVID-19 cases in Indonesia has decreased by 94% from the peak of spike on the cases in July 2021. However, the government continues to promote vigilance in order to avoid another wave. National and local governments are still strongly implementing and improving testing, tracing, and also treatment protocols. Mandatory health protocols in daily activities and accelerating vaccination to reach the target of 208 million people by the end of 2021 is what will be the key component to our economy recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, the global economic recovery continues in line with high optimism, as indicated by a rebound in economic growth in the second quarter of 2021 in various G20 and ASEAN countries. Despite a drop in July, Indonesia's PMI, Purchasing Managers Index, rebounded back to the expansive side in the month of September. This was a result industries and businesses reopening and local economies beginning to bloom. Indonesia's economic growth exited recession in half of this year. This rebound managed to bring Indonesia's real GDP return to the pre-pandemic level, while the real GDP of other countries, especially in ASEAN, still below the pre-pandemic level. The government is also continuing anticipatory and responsive steps in managing the dynamics. With tools at its disposal, including fiscal stimulus and the increased state budget, all-out efforts are being pushed to expedite our economy recovery. Furthermore, the trade balance in August showed a surplus of 4.7 billion US dollar, or accumulated 19.1 billion US dollar from January 2021. Export performance grew by 37.7% year-on-year, contributed by export of coal, palm oil, basic iron and steel, and natural gas. The export growth was driven primarily by raising global commodity prices. Meanwhile, import performance grew by 33% year-on-year, driven by positive growth in import of raw materials and capital goods. This indicates that production activities were able to operate with an adaptation of SOP on a strict health protocols. A blessing always comes in times of crisis. For Indonesia, it provides space for us to carry out much needed reforms in various sectors. These reforms key to improve productivity and competitiveness and accelerate economic growth in order to put Indonesia back on track, moving forward its vision to achieve the 2045 Advanced Indonesia goal. As with the recovery of socio-economic activities, structural reform plays a crucial role in accelerating post-pandemic economic growth. The job creation law is the foundation for structural reforms in Indonesia, putting strong emphasis on human resources development, infrastructure, and efforts to improve ease of doing business in Indonesia. The implementation of the job creation law and its derivative regulation are the backbone needed to develop basic and digital infrastructure, increase technology mastery, production efficiency, and workforce skills. Combined, it will be the main engine for strong and sustainable economic performance. I strongly believe that these reform policies will boost investment, improve business climate, and create quality jobs for a strong Indonesian workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the challenges we face, encourage business representatives from our two regions to explore the potentials on deepening economic engagement between Indonesia and Latin America and the Caribbean countries. Our total trade today only represents 2% of Indonesia's total trade to the world, and only a mere 0.34% of LAC's total trade to the world. These figures do not reflect our true potential. In this regard, Indonesia is ready to explore the potential to deepen economic engagement between Indonesia and the LAC countries. Additionally, Indonesia has recently implemented the Indonesia-Chile Comprehensive Economic Partnership in 2019. I believe that this could become a benchmark of trade cooperation with other LAC's countries. Allow me to end this note by conveying to you that we must recover and grow powerfully together. Thank you and hope you enjoy this event and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita, the Minister of Industry of the Republic of Indonesia, for your great remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and for now, please allow me to tell you a little bit about our forum's background. This forum aims to improve economic relations in the midst of a dynamic global situation, including the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. It also serves as one of the most notable events for all of us to acquire the most updated as well as the most accurate information in Indonesia, Latin America, and Caribbean business and economic cooperation. So today we aim to introduce to you both regions' enterprises, the business climate, and also functioning mechanism of the market, and discuss the policies to encourage investment and import-export. And during this session, not only will I have the opportunity to speak with our panelists, later we'll also have a Q&A session. So we'd like to invite everyone, all of you watching, all of our viewers, to propose your questions on the Q&A section of your screens. If you're on Zoom, it is just below your screen. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang ingin bertanya, nanti di sesi Q&A, Anda bisa mengajukan pertanyaan Anda di kolom Q&A yang tertera di bawah screen Zoom Anda. So please allow me to first introduce to you our panelists. Our first one is Ambassador Pablo Enrique Sivori, the Undersecretary for Trade Strategy and Economic Promotion of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Trade, and Worship of the Argentine Republic. Undersecretary Severo has a degree in economics at UBA and a master's of computer science from the University of Birmingham. Some of his previous consultancies are related to innovation, tourism, and institution building for the Ministry of Modernization and the Ministry of Tourism. Let us welcome Ambassador Severo. Hi, Ambassador. I hope you're doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you very much. It gives me a great pleasure to attend to this meeting. I would like to thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia for hosting this seminar and, of course, for inviting me to take part of this relevant discussion.
Well, Ambassador Severo, we're also very, very happy and honored to have you here. And Well, before we start the panel discussion, please allow me to introduce to everyone our second panelist, Mr. Eko S.A. Cahyanto. He's the Director General of Resilience, Territorial and International Industrial Access of the Ministry of Industry of the Republic of Indonesia. He was born in Surabaya, the second largest city in Indonesia. Pak Eko is a Magister of Asian Studies and Comparative Law from the University of Washington. Let's welcome Mr. Eko. Hello, Pak Eko. How are you today?
Hi, Emily. Have a good evening. Nice to meet you here and nice to meet the other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eko. We're so happy to have you here too. And I have just one more panelist to introduce, Mrs. Nimade Ayu Martini. She's the Director for Bilateral Negotiations, Ministry of Trade of the Republic of Indonesia. Previously, Ibu Made was the Director of Strategic Issues for the Ministry of Trade of Indonesia. Ibu Made was born in Jembrana and she graduated from the London School of Economics and earned her Master's of Science on Politics of the World Economy. Let's welcome Mrs. Made. Hi, Ibu Made. I hope you're doing well. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Mbak Amelia. It's good to be
We're so
here.
happy and honored to have you here.
Thank you.
And all right, now it's a full party. We have Ambassador Mr. Sivori, Mr. Eko, and also Mrs. Made. I hope everyone's doing well today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we really aim to introduce to both regions' enterprises the business climate as well as the functioning mechanism of the market. And together, let us discuss the policies to encourage investments and import-export. And also, the most important is to enhance partnership in post-pandemic economic recovery. So I'd like to start with the reflection of the current situation, Ibu Made. So far, Mrs. Made, Indonesia have managed to control the COVID-19 pandemic and sustain its economic development on an encouraging level compared to the regional and global average levels. But despite the economic uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemic has pushed our tech and trade sector. That is the good news. Indonesia continues to be one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia. So, Mrs. Made, looking back, what is the impact of the pandemic on our economic performance in Indonesia, especially on our trade sector, Ibu?
Thank you very much for that question. It's very interesting. You're right. Everyone in the world, or everywhere in the world, we got impacted by this COVID-19, right? And luckily, if I may say, in Indonesia, we're quite resilient thanks to our big population, emerging economies, our export, as Minister of Industry mentioned, rightly saying that we are doing well thanks to the, of course, the price of the commodities, right? And also the power of the economy domestically. It also helps. So, but one thing, despite that good news in the midst of COVID, we have to look at deeper than that, yeah, where a lot of vulnerable people, the private sectors, especially on small, medium enterprise. This is the group of what is it called, enterprises that got impacted a lot. And now to add, there's a perfect storm, I would say. The shipment or logistic, it's very not only expensive but also rare, right? So there's a problem, there's a challenge that we face all over the world, especially for SMEs, that they cannot afford to export, for example. This is a real challenge that facing, and we have to give a special attention to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu. And Ambassador Sivori, looking back on the answer by Mrs. Made, we have seen recoveries, we have seen the good news, we've seen the improvements, but vulnerability still exists and is very much evident. How about in Argentina, or how has the pandemic hit Latin American as well as the Caribbean region? How is the current situation there now? Oh, Ambassador, I'm so sorry. I think you're still on mute.
Yes, sorry. No, let me start with a brief review of global economic and social situation in the recent past. No, so I think it's very important to take in mind that before the pandemic broke out, the global economy was experiencing a moderate growth with but quite unequal in the different regions. The global economy grew by 3.6% during 2018 and 2.8% during 2019. But if we look to Latin America and the Caribbean region, the pre-pandemic scenario was characterized by the low growth, just 1.2% in 2018 and 0.1% during 2019. And a social situation marked by an inequity and vulnerability, with growing poverty that was weakening the social structure of our societies. Particularly in Argentina, our economy was suffering from a debt crisis that compromised our capacities to respond to external shocks. And if we compare with other regions of developing world, for instance, the region of Asia was growing at a faster level or rate than the global economy, 5%, 5.4% in 2018 and 4.9% in 2019. So, but under this unequal context, the pandemic had an accurate impact in economic and growth and social development all over the world. And if we look during the pandemic period, the GDP of the world fell by 3.1% in 2020, and it was also a fall in the GDP of Asia of 3.4%. But in Latin America and the Caribbean, the GDP fell by 7% during the pandemic. And if we think also we take into account what happened in trade, we can notice that global trade fell by 9% during the pandemic. And of course, Latin America and the Caribbean also had a fall in its trade flows, 13% in its imports volumes and 9% in export volumes. But at the moment, we can find an economy that is recovering, although the social situation, it's not the best. We find a region that is having a lot of public policies to improve our economy, but in a context of trades of commodities that are growing and held by prices that are also growing. But we need to think on a worldwide public policy of recovery that needs to enhance a sustainable development focused on leaving no one behind. I mean, we need to think of a global recovery policy that enhance the capacities of Latin America and the Caribbean, and of course, the Indonesia and the Asian region. So, but in a context of new paradigms of trade that are more focused on regional and regional value chains and not thinking of global value chains, especially because of the problems that has just been said related to trade and to logistics. But we need to think of recovering policies that enhance economic and technological cooperation, that promote inclusive trade and investments, and support the development of small and medium enterprises, especially focusing in women and vulnerable groups between different regions. Therefore, we think that, or I think that Indonesia and especially Latin America and the Caribbean have greater opportunities in this context. Yes, this new paradigm of international trade can help to strengthen capacities of Argentina and Latin America and the Caribbean and the Asian region. We think that we can build up strategic partnerships that could set up auspicious frameworks for building technological transfer schemes and to financial mechanisms that could help both regions to improve trade, to improve investments, and to have a common recovery policy.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, for the great insights. And Mr. Eko, as a country with the highest or the largest economy in Southeast Asia, Indonesia has the potential to take advantage of the great and lively economy in Latin America as well as the Caribbean region. However, as of last year, Indonesia's trade with Latin America and the Caribbean represents only merely 2% of its total trade. So how is it that our current relationship does not reflect on our true potential with each other?
Okay, thank you, Emily. First, I would like to figure the situation of the industrial sector in Indonesia. Our oil and non-oil and gas manufacturing industry in the first quarter of 2021 has contracted minus 0.71%. Yet, some sectors such as chemical, pharmaceutical, and traditional medicine grew by 11%, followed by the furniture by 8% and base metal industry by 7%. Our non-oil and gas manufacturing industry sector was still driving force behind our national economy, and this can be seen from its contribution to the national GDP of 17.91%. In addition, as you mentioned, the export value of the industrial sector from January to May this year was $66.70 billion and resulted in a surplus of $7.49 billion. Mr. Minister has mentioned that it's only 2% of our export to the Latin America and the Caribbean. We know that the pandemic affects everything, every country, every sector, including the industry. Yet there are potential chances to enhance the market due to the resilience of the industry based our policy and also the characteristic of our industry. This pandemic taught us to enhance and strengthen our cooperation to ease the supply chains. Ambassador Pablo Sivori just mentioned that the global value chain needs everyone to enhance and have a more cooperation. So we can figure out the problems due to our enhanced cooperation. I think this potential market should be explored more, and this forum like what we have in recent days, I believe can enhance and now strengthen the trade and the cooperation between two regions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eko and Mrs. Made. The Indonesian government has, since a couple of years ago especially strive to create favorable conditions for domestic as well as foreign investors and traders, business people to invest and trade within their capacity. So what strategies should governments at the local, national, or regional levels, however you want to put to contribute for economic recovery as efforts, especially considering that both regions, the Latin American, Caribbean, as well as Indonesians, the distance of both regions is quite far. How do we simplify and make things easier for both regions?
Okay, I think one thing, lesson learned from the pandemic is that countries should collaborate and cooperate rather than work against each other or adversary. I think this is true for Indonesia and Latin America and Caribbean countries, because only by collaborating we can move forward and achieve objective, right? For Indonesia, this is even pre-COVID-19. Our policy is opening up. Our president since 2014 had a direction, international trade direction is opening up, engage with non-traditional market, what we call it, or untapped market, not only traditional ones, yeah, because there are a lot of potential. And government is very focused on Latin American and Caribbean countries and African continent. So since then, we started to engage because if you, I think everyone agrees here, seeing is believing. You have to know your partner. If you don't speak, that you don't understand where they're coming from, and so on. So there is no rocket science, right? So from that on, we, the government, is very active, engaging, cooperate, including through trade agreement or trade negotiations. We have one already, Indonesia and Chile, and we hope to be able to reach and approach in more countries in Latin America and Caribbean. We are in conversation now and preparing with Mercosur, for example, also Pacific Alliance, SICA, and others. So, and this is just one of the ways. Again, why we think these trade agreements will be beneficial, especially for private sectors, the enterprises, is that lowering tariff, right, is one of them. By lowering tariff, that the barriers in terms of tariffs is eliminated. There are more interests for both sides to trade. So that's one. Secondly, the second pillar I would say is facilitation. Yeah, market access is one pillar. Second pillar is facilitation. How to ensure that the trade between the two is flawless, right? You have to facilitate, yeah. And there are measures there, but you have to make sure the measure is non-discriminatory and it's easy to trade, including for SMEs. And lastly, through this agreement, we can also have cooperation, economic cooperation program that countries in Latin America and Caribbean, Indonesia can work together and find ways and means. How can we improve the trade between the two? It's just to name a few. And this is certainly the direction from our government. But of course, we have to have priorities, right? So while we are building or direction towards the trade agreement, we have a few forums that we have, right? Working group on trade investment, for example. We did have a few countries we approached, like Colombia and also Ecuador, Mexico, and because, as I said, if you understand each other, not only government, yeah, the private sector will follow. So we hope post-COVID recovery, we have more of this, more engagement, understand each other, and so doing trade, and then with the facilitation through trade agreement, that we can even double or increase the trade between the two. And INA-LAC forum, like what we have today, I think it also helps that to bridge that communications. So now I think if you see, this is, I think, the third years that we have this. So that means that two governments investing in this relationship, we get closer together, and hopefully we can bear fruit. In a year or 2 years from now, our trade, it will be reflected in our trade. Thank you, Mbak Amelia.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Madi, for the excellent input. And Ambassador Sivori, looking back and after listening to Mrs. Madi's statements that Indonesian, conditions for the governments of both regions. How do you to help make trade smoother? Should bureaucracy be simplified to help investors or make businesses easier? What are your takes on that, Ambassador?
Well, I think very similar of what Mrs. Maid has just mentioned. I think we need to work in not only in the three levels of government, but also with the private sector and the scientific sector. And as it has just been mentioned, of course, the national level of governments need to work together in regulation schemes, in macroeconomic structures, and of course, thinking in how our nations could complement each other in aspects such as financial capacity or regulation to make trade smoother, no? But of course, in order to increase trade and investment flows, we need to work with the different levels of government, provincial levels and local levels, and of course, with the private sector actors, not only to improve trade by regulation schemes, but also to improve or to cooperate in research and of course in technology know-how transfer. And I think there are different aspects of or sectors in which Latin America and Indonesia could complement each other. Of course, the fields of medical and healthcare, most in this time of post-pandemic, but surely in what has to do with agricultural value chains, and I'm not mentioning only the product, especially I think there is a great space to collaborate and strengthen trade and investment in all that has to do with the technology related to increase productivity in the agricultural value chain, especially because we have a very good complementation when we look at the product level. And of course, we need to think in improving trade and investment with new schemes, not only thinking in the traditional schemes of exports and imports, but also thinking in strategy alliances between the private sectors, including universities in these new models, and thinking in, of course, financial mechanisms and capacities of building in together by two regions. So we need to think in new schemes of cooperation between the regions that, of course, we need to strengthen regulation situations to have less rates so that we are able to have more competitive products going from one region to the other. But I'm sure we need to strengthen our capacities to have more and better production in each regions and to trade between our regions in these schemes, especially thinking in a new paradigm of trade that I think it would not be the global value chains, and we need to think in another scheme of trade.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And I see that there's so many viewers right now saying hello, and we're so happy to have you participating in this session of our panel discussion. And for those of you who want to ask, please do not hesitate to propose your questions to our speakers. on the Q&A section just below your screens. And Ambassador Sivori, now back on the strategies that you have mentioned. How should the governments of Indonesia as well as the Latin America and Caribbean countries, for example, manage as well as provide strategies which then can be utilized to expedite business contracts between these two regions? Ambassador.
Well, the first aspect is that I think we need to work together on a common strategy that is beneficial for both regions. And under this joint commitment of understanding which is the common strategy, try to build up a whole package of instruments and joint policies to enhance and further contracts between different economic actors. That, of course, the public sector could be one, but I'm sure that between the private sectors of both regions, we can build up a very good recovering policies, and of course of enhancing a growing GDP, a growing economy with less unemployment and better living conditions for our people.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And Mr. Eko, the pandemic has also supported the advancement of small and medium enterprises, of course, the backbone of Indonesia's economy, by democratizing access to technologies and services that used to be available only to large enterprises. Has this benefited Indonesia's industry sector?
Emily, in both regions, there are so many populations. In Indonesia, there are 270 million people, and for the industry, most of them are the small and medium enterprise. There are millions of them. In Latin America and Caribbean, there are 630 million of people. So in total, in both regions, there are almost 1 billion people. This is a very big, a very huge potential. Our backbone of the small and medium industry do the business in traditional ways. This needs facilitation, as Ibu Made mentioned before, because we know that although we already have trade relations, like we have Indonesia-Chile comprehensive economic partnerships agreements, yet the trades between two countries is very small. From 2014 to 2018, our trade is still deficit. The trade performance show Indonesia deficits from 2014 to 2018 still need to be boosted. So I think this business forum should be promoted to also includes our small and medium enterprises. As we can see from the Q&A, there are questions asking about how to export to the Latin America. This is the things that we have to figure out first before we can go through to the next level. The data shows that the Latin American countries import electronics in large number from other countries throughout the world. This can be, for example, this can be supplied by Indonesian product. And if we can have a more schemes, as Ambassador Pablo mentioned, we can strengthen our trade relations. Because as we have experienced, at least for the last 5 years, this potential market still need other countries to go through. So from a business forum like this, we can go to get promotions by other instrument or by other media, so we can know each other. The enterprises and the businesses from the Latin America and Caribbean countries know better about the Indonesian industry, and know they can know what products they can have, and our business society also will know the real potential that we can have from the countries. The non-traditional market, like Ibu Made mentions, are still growing and growing more after this pandemic, because we know that the pandemic taught us more to enhance our operations, to ease the trade and also the supply chains that we need to resilience our countries. Thank you.
Excellent, Bapak Eko, thank you very much. And Ambassador, how has the government of Argentina evaluated the potential of Asian markets, including Indonesia's, which accounts for 80% of the nation's export turnover?
Of course, for Argentina, the Asian market is quite important, and we are focused on a strategy that is strengthening the relationship with all Asian markets. We know the great consumption capacity of the market, and of course, we think we have a great opportunity of complementing Argentina and Asian market, because economies are quite complementary, especially as it has just been said, by the capacity of producing technological goods in all Indonesia and on Asian area, and the capacity of producing food and of technology for producing food in Argentina. Therefore, we think that we need to strengthen trade relationships, of course, investment relationship between Argentina and all Asia area, and we need to think on improving the actual trade structure, going to a new situation of more complex goods that can be trade between both regions or between Argentina and the Indonesia and all the Asian area. So for our countries, strategy market, Indonesia and all the Asian area.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for the insights. And ladies and gentlemen, so now let us open the question to the floor. Allow me to read the questions of our viewers to our panelists. And the first question that I'm going to read out is for Ibu Made. Mrs. Made, this question is from our audience. In your expertise, what is the best approach for dealing with the uncertainty to make sure that our trade system is fundamentally resilient and that we have as many fail-safes and backup arrangements as possible? Mrs. Made.
Okay. Well, I think I'd like to underline one word here: creativity. I think be creative. In the midst of uncertainty like now, like today, you need to use technology. Yeah, a lot of behavior change in the world, right? Use technology. You have to understand your market. Now that because of COVID-19, people are more conscious about their health, they go to healthy living, energy saving, sustainable product, and so on and so on. You need to change also our behavior towards that, right? And then you understand your market, like what kind of segment of market that you are in. Is it for young? Is it for adult in general? Is it for children? So I think that's why you're in business, right? But sometimes you need to go beyond that, think outside the box, and then also you need to invest in people. I think people, the capacity building, yeah, for your own self and your employee, for example, is very important. Things change, the trend change. You have to be agile and adaptive. I think what important also, especially true for the small medium enterprises, is the notion of standard, also compliance. How can we export to certain countries? This is true for both, yeah. Latin American and Caribbean wants to export to Indonesia. They need to know about the tariff. They need to know about the compliance, the licensing, and so on. And this is usually the biggest challenge, if I may say, one off maybe. So then government in this regard needs to facilitate the trade facilitation that I was referring to. There is a place for them, for the exporter to ask the question, so they understand about the procedures. Just to name a few. So I think those are a few strategies that you need to do in the midst of the uncertainty today. But this is on the micro level. On the bigger level, which is global level, I would say, we live in the uncertainty of a world trading system, right? We're trying hard to make sure the WTO is on track, because I think for Latin American countries and Caribbean and also Indonesian, most of us are developing nations. We need this multilateralism because our leverage is there. We can work together to figure out, if you want to, for example, review or modernize WTO, what kind? We talk about the fishery subsidies, for example, at the global level. So this kind of thing, I think we also need to empower ourselves. And again, and I said, as developing nations, we need to collaborate and cooperate. Only by that, our voice heard, and then we can advance our objective, our mission. So I think that's the answer. I give the two folds in this regard on micro level and also global level. Thank you, Mbak Amelia. Back to you.
Excellent approach and advice, Ibu. And I've received another question, and this one is for Mr. Eko. Pak Eko, what measures should our government do to ensure SMEs can reduce the economic negative impacts of the pandemic and to enhance the possibility to remain commercially operational under the fluctuating circumstances in the future? Mr. Eko.
Thank you, Amelia. The Ministry of Industry want to ensure that the industry can operate during the pandemics. So we have a policy to give special permission for industry to open as long as they comply with the health and safety protocol by Ministry of Health and Ministry of Industry. We also want to ensure that the industry can also benefit from these situations. So that's why we ease the business through the job creation law and the regulations under the job creation law, not only to ease the business, but to ensure that the businesses can do the business without any hesitation. That's the things that we want to ensure. The other hand, we also facilitate the industry not only to operate but also to reach the market. The situation now, we learned that we have to be more resilient. We have to be more flexible, and we have to be more adaptive. So that's why the innovation, as Ibu Made mentions, is the thing that our businesses has to know. And through the digital transformations, we learned for the last 2 years, the market can be reached easily. The market can be reached effectively, and the market can be reached widely. We know that some businesses grow very fast and very big because of the adoptions of the technology. This is what we want, that the businesses also benefit from the technology. The Ministry of Industry has launched the initiative of Making Indonesia 4.0 to adopt the aspect of Industry 4.0 to the industry. The adoptions of the technology is important, and the things that the businesses has to adopt. That's some points that I can suggest, and I can explain to the questions. Yet there are many things that we have to be done. So that's why the Ministry of Industry also adopt the situations through the development of what we call PD 4.0. In Indonesia, it's Pusat Industri Digital Indonesia, or the Center of Digital Industry of Indonesia. This is the place that the ecosystems take place. There are technology providers, there are financial institutions, there are academicians, there are businesses, and there are many stakeholders in these centers. The small and medium enterprises and the small and medium businesses can use these centers to not only to innovate the product, but also to learn how to adopt the technology due to the needs to enhance their markets. That's Emily.
Excellent, Mr. Eko. Thank you so much for the great input, and I hope everyone's taking notes. And now our next question is to Ambassador. Ambassador, this one is from Alfonso Octavio. His question is very interesting. He wants to sell his product to Argentina, Ambassador. How can he get importer companies from Argentina? And has the government of Argentina launched a website that can help him find a buyer? Ambassador.
Yes, well, Argentina has a trade promotion structure that has the Undersecretary of Trade and Investment Promotion, as well as the Argentinian Agency for Trade and Investment Promotion. In the Argentinian Agency for Trade and Investment Promotion, in its website, you can find information, not only of Argentinian exporters, but also of Argentinian importers. But of course, the person who asked the question can take contact with our embassy in Indonesia, and we can help him with information about feasible importers of Argentina with the product he's willing to export to Argentina. So I suggest that he can, in the first stage, look into the website of the Argentinian Agency of Trade and Investment Promotion, but as well to take contact with our embassy in Indonesia and give them information about the product he is willing to export to Argentina, and we can help him to find or give him contacts with feasible Argentinian importers.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Alfonso. I hope that answers your question. And Ambassador, our next one, also for you, this one is from Coca-Cola, a biscuit company. What we have found during promoting our products in Latin America, most of interested buyers on consumer goods like biscuits, for example, always ask for the possibility for private labels. Her question is, why do they really like to create their own brands or private labels? Ambassador.
I am trying to, can you repeat me the question, please?
Yes. The question from Coca-Cola Biscuit Company is, companies in Latin America, the buyers, they tend to request or want Indonesian products, but with their own labels or their own brands. Yes, they're asking maybe for a channel in which Indonesian brands can be sold in Argentina.
Okay, I understand. Well, the first reflection I have is that the requirement that most of Latin American companies are doing to the Indonesian company is like a international trade. I mean, also this also happens to Latin American companies that are willing to export to other regions, and they say, okay, you can export, but with our brand. But in any case, there are different schemes to export that not only has to do with the brand of other people and keeping its own brand in Latin America. The same answer that the one before. We need to know the product, the quality, what they are offering, and we can make contact with different channels of buyers that they are not only willing to import the product, but with their own brand, but also to import the product and have a more range of brands in their shelves. So I think there are different schemes, and the main fact is to understand the product, to know which is the business plan that they have, so we can help them to find the adequate partner.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ambassador. And my last question to all of our panelists, could you please share with us, succinct and briefly, your insights on innovative strategies you think could or should be implemented to address post-COVID-19 challenges and utilize current opportunities? I'm going to ask Mrs. Made to answer first.
Okay, I think for these questions, I think I mentioned earlier, post-COVID recovery or strategy, you need to be creative. I again and again mention this because things change. A lot of changes in the world, including our behavior, our preference. People think safety first over everything else, for example. So you have to tap that, yeah. You have to see what kind of opportunities lies behind those changing in behavior. So it's true in Indonesia. I think you mentioned, some of the speakers mentioned earlier, with the technology, the e-commerce platform that available now, it doesn't prevent us from doing business, right? So when you creative, you, for example, now in trend Indonesia, at least if you notice that a lot of people sells food because food is always be consumed and be needed, right? So they put on Instagram, on the some platform, for example, it sells, you know, it is short term and it become business. So I think creativity, use the technology, understand your market, yeah, and then that's for around you or short term, but long term, I think it's the same. I think it's the same. But I know the challenge now, apart from logistic, as I mentioned earlier, also for Indonesia and Latin America and Caribbean, the problem or the challenge that we face is about economic of scale because it's far, right? Far and quite costly to go there, even pre-COVID. So how can we collaborate? You know, what I think the approach could be as way of suggestion, there is consolidator. You know, you don't let the container empty, for example, because you cannot afford just one container, for example. This is just an example. Then you collaborate with others. And after knowing the market, you know, asking or inquiring information from the embassies here, the, you know, Argentinian embassy, for example, our embassy over there, our trade offices, and so on and so forth, and do some research. Then we collaborate and understand, okay, for that specific country, they're like private labeling, because you mentioned about private labeling, for example. This is part of strategy, marketing strategy, I think. But you can also take it positively in a way that, okay, this is not your label yet, but your product is known. Later on, after it gets bigger and known there, you can have your own label. So take this also as part of your marketing strategy, right? So I think those are a few tips that I can share with you. But again, the power of social media, if you use it wisely and correctly, is actually tremendous. It's amazing. So that's from me, Mbak Amelia. Thank you.
Excellent input and tips, Ibu. And that also questions our last question from our audience. Thank you. And Mr. Eko, the same question.
Technological disruption and digitizations provide us a prompt and timely response to the recent global pandemic. That today we could be here in the second Indonesia, Latin America, and the Caribbean Business Forum to make a breakthrough addressing the challenge of and providing the solution for post-pandemic economic recovery. So the digital transformation and adoptions of technologies related to the Industry 4.0 is definitely needs to breakthrough. So I would like to convey that we must recover and grow with powerful together. The forum like this should be enhanced and promote largely and be more frequently. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eko. Thank you for emphasizing that. And Ambassador, same question.
Okay, I agree totally with what just has been said. I think media technology need to is part of our life at the moment. No, it's the real life at the moment is media technology, but I think thinking on both regions, and as it has been said, the distance between both regions, I think we need to think on new schemes of doing business between both regions. And I think that a great way is to think on strategy alliances between businessmen that not have to do with big firms. It could be with small and medium firms, where one of each region has the capabilities to innovate in products and services, and the firm in the other region is able to produce, to have the technology, or to make a transfer of technology and to produce and sell in the other region. And I think we need to think in this type of schemes of be regional small and medium enterprises, no, where trade has less importance, I mean, in logistic aspects, and technology is used to reduce the costs of logistics, but with firms or cooperation schemes and business schemes between firms of both regions, producing and innovating at the same time, but supplying both markets at the same time. Of course, for doing this, we need to think on common public policies and financial schemes, another type of public policies, of course. But I think that given the actual situation regarding to logistics and the costs of logistics and the problems of times in logistics, and also with the possibilities that technology is given, we need to think on this type of schemes.
Excellent, succinct, clear, and useful. Thank you very much, Ambassador, Mr. Eco, as well as Mrs. Made, for the insights. I hope everyone has gained incredible insights from our panelists here today. Unfortunately, due to time management, we're going to have to cut short the panel discussion of our first panel discussion today. And ladies and gentlemen, from my panelist statements, it is indeed emphasized that in order to enhance partnership in post-pandemic economic recovery, as well as unlock our real economic potential, we must be able to adapt to new approaches and create breakthroughs. So once again, Ambassador, Mr. Eco, as well as Mrs. Made, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Pak Eko.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Amelia.
Thank you, Amelia.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Well, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, next, please also allow me to present to you a testimonial video from the Export School of Indonesia.
Indonesia has been entering the new era of Industry 4.0, and going digital is the only way to keep up with the rapid pace of the modern business environment. Therefore, I appreciate the development of an integrated digital platform INA-Access as an innovative measure toward inclusive trade, tourism, and investment for Latin America and the Caribbean and beyond. It plays a role as an innovative approach to facilitate business interaction swiftly and effectively. I would like to invite all Indonesian business people to utilize the INA-Access digital platform and grab the potential to seize the opportunity of the digital transformation on doing business. So let's utilize INA-Access.com.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, every cloud sure does have a silver lining. The COVID-19 pandemic has undoubtedly helped governments realize various new economic and business potentials. Indonesia aims to double, if not triple, the value of business deals to be made during this year's business forum with Latin America and Caribbean countries. Trade between our regions represents still too little. Our current relationship does not reflect our true potential. If there's one thing the pandemic has forced us to see, is new potential. Although the current situation shows the world remain in an economically precarious place, the V-shaped recovery still must materialize. Whatever we choose to call it, our recovery from the pandemic still has a way to go. So in order to make 2021 and next year, 2022, the years of revival from COVID-19, the governments from both sides and private sectors also from both sides must indeed combine their strength and start by doing everything in their power to balance measures to prevent infections with economic recovery. So everyone, once again, thank you very much. I'm Amelia Yahya. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Terima kasih. Gracias.